But this particular person was one of my guests on that. She's a regular supporter of Reach and, of course, has been a Reach member for many years. And she also is somebody that you'll probably recognise from her numerous TV roles, including Coronation Street, Doctors, The Long Run, Hannah Taylor in Mike Bartlett's BBC One drama Life, and, of course, Grantchester. And she's just finished filming the third series of that. So it's a great pleasure to welcome her here today as our final closing guest speaker, Melissa Johns.
Hello. I did notice that Reach put speaker Melissa Johns with inspiring and funny stories. So no pressure there, Reach. Thanks for that. It's really warm in here, so I'm going to try to, keep it light and hopefully I don't get in the way of the brilliant performance that's going on next door. I feel like I'm actually getting in the way as I talk over them. So I hope you're all having a lovely afternoon so far. A huge thank you to Reach for putting on this weekend's events and asking me to be part of the celebrations. It's my first Reach weekend as an ambassador. Now, I've only been to a couple. I didn't know about Reach when I was growing up, which is quite sad. My parents are with me today and they didn't know about Reach either. So we didn't start coming to Reach things until I was 27. And I remember the first time Mum came to one, it was back in 2017. And I think, Sian, you probably remember, Mum was just in tears for most of it because she just hadn't ever been surrounded by this many children with limb differences, or the parents. So these weekends really are gorgeous. They are a place for us with limb differences to celebrate our uniqueness and lived experience as a community. They're a chance to share stories and champion new ways of carrying out tasks. And I feel like this one is the most important at times. It's a place where parents of children with limb differences can come together to support and celebrate each other. It's a place that this weekend, in an instant, can wipe away that initial fear that many may have faced at a scan. It can replace that pit in the stomach feeling of the unknown when hearing those words, "There's something a little bit different about your baby." And it's a space to be reminded that your child's life will be rich, it will be full, and it will be everything that it is meant to be, even when it feels like the odds are against them. But limb difference or not, that's a feeling that we can all relate to. It's something that I'm sure everybody in this room has felt at some point in their lives, when you work tirelessly to achieve something, to make a difference, to fight a battle that you're passionate about, but constant blocks and barriers get in the way. It's a feeling that I'm very familiar with. From the start, I was born into a world that unfortunately struggled with my difference, with my disability. I use the word disability in a really celebratory way. For me, it's not a dirty word at all. It completely embraces and celebrates the life that I've lived, and we shouldn't see it as dirty. The doctors took over half an hour to introduce me to my parents and tell them that I was born without my right hand and forearm. They wrapped me up in a blanket and they told my parents that they had a perfect little girl. I'm not sure whether they expected my parents not to notice because that's really awkward. Mum's just there changing my nappy. Where's her arm? But the reason why they did that is because they feared my parents' reaction. They didn't have an explanation for what had happened and they didn't know what to say. So my first barrier was being the elephant in the room at half an hour old. Now, I had a wonderful childhood and my parents made sure that I didn't miss out on a thing. They would always come up with new ways of me doing things so that I could join in with everyone else. When I started school, I saw myself as the same as every other kid. Although that's no thanks to the hospital who at 8 years old offered me a hook, telling Mum that it would be easier to have one of those. And this was the 90s, it was an actual hook. Can you imagine playing tag with me? Melissa's it! And suddenly loads of kids haven't got their spines left. So I opted out of the hook situation for the greater good and safety of everybody else. But despite me seeing myself as no different, not everyone saw me as the same as everyone else. In PE, I'd be told to sit out a lot, and that's when I'd get really frustrated. Now, I couldn't do a very good cartwheel, but I did a great roly-poly. I remember being in year 2, and my arm ran out of battery. I asked the teacher if I could take it off and it could be charged up, and she looked at me as if I'd asked the most ridiculous question. No, Melissa, leave it on, leave it on. We'll go and charge you up over here. And so she took me over to the corner of the room and she sat me next to a plug socket and she plugged me in and she charged me up like an iPhone. And in all seriousness, I would sit there in those moments and I would think, why am I being left out? I'm just the same as everyone else. I just don't have a right hand. But it wasn't long before I started to see myself as different too, but not in a good way. The teachers were casting the nativity play. It was like year 2 or 3. And I wanted to be Angel Gabriel so bad. I remember a girl in my class saying, you won't be Gabriel. You probably won't even get a part in the play. Nobody wants to see your arm like that. She got the part as Angel Gabriel. And I was cast as a shepherd number 3, to be precise. And I was a bit disheartened, but I thought, do you know what? I'll just be the best shepherd they've ever seen. A couple of days before the show, disaster struck. Angel Gabriel went down with tonsillitis. They told us they'd have to move around the characters, and I thought, this is it. This is my chance to shine as Gabriel. Think of how great it would be when I go home and I tell Mum that I'm going to play the angel. They promoted shepherd number 1 to Gabriel, and I was promoted to shepherd number 2. Never mind, I thought maybe next time. But what if she was right? Original Gabriel. She'd put this thought in my head that people didn't want to see me. Having one arm was weird and ugly, and it should be hidden away. It was uncomfortable for people, and that was my fault, and I should do all I could to hide it. And that's exactly what I did. For the next 16 years, I hid this part of my body as much as I could. As a teenager, I hated the way I looked. I saw everyone as this beautiful, sparkling little gem, and then there was me, this ugly, bulky stone that just got in the way. I would boil in the summer wearing long-sleeve jumpers to hide my arm. I wouldn't go out without a cardigan draped over it, and I would never show my right side in photos. As a teenager, most of us have body anxieties, but having this body that was so different to everybody else's at times felt unbearable. Who would want me as their girlfriend? Nobody, I thought. I remember being on a night out in a local club, and a lad had been dancing with me, and he hadn't noticed my arm yet because I'd got really, really good at hiding it. When I went home, I woke up the next morning and I had loads of missed calls and voicemails off him. I was really excited and my tummy was doing somersaults. I listened to the message. Freaks like you don't deserve to live. You made me look stupid in front of my mates. I got over that. He wasn't that fit anyway. But acting had always been the thing that I wanted to do. I wasn't much good at anything else, and to be honest, I never had a plan B. When you tell people that you want to be an actor, you get this sort of sympathetic look anyway. But when you have a disability, that changes completely. Oh, an actor? Okay, little pat on the head. When I was auditioning for drama school, I remember one university saying, Melissa, you might as well take our offer because you'll never get into a full drama school. They don't accept people like you onto their courses. People like me. I'm just the same as everybody else. I just don't have a right hand. Hearing those words made me fight even harder. I cancelled all of the university interviews to do drama, and I only focused on accredited drama schools, travelling to London for each audition and each round that I got through. The rejection letters came thick and fast. Dear Melissa, unfortunately, we're unable to accept you onto the course. Melissa, we're unfortunately unable to accept you onto the course. Then came April. 4 months after I'd started auditioning, and at a time when I started to think maybe I'll just have to have another year out, try again, a letter came through the post. Dear Melissa, we are delighted to inform you that you've been accepted onto the BA Honours Acting and Contemporary Theatre course at East 15 Acting School. I'd done it. That year, over 3,000 people had auditioned for the school, and there were 35 places. And I was one of them, one of those 35. The next 3 years were incredible. The directors and acting coaches believed in me more than anyone had before. They embraced this different body, and they allowed me to see that difference was good. It was empowering, it was real, it was raw. A couple of months later, in February 2011, award season arrived. The biggest and most prestigious award was the Laurence Olivier Bursary Award. 2 people from each of the 22 accredited drama schools in the UK would be selected to represent their school and audition at the Ambassadors Theatre in London in hope of winning one of the Olivier Awards. Now, I was realistic. A disabled person hadn't won the award before, and as I was told quite a few times, was unlikely to. But I thought, let's just go for it. So I auditioned, and a couple of days later, I was called out of a dance class and told that the principal had chosen me as one of the 2 people to represent our school. Over the next month, I worked closely with directors on monologues in preparation for the audition that would be judged by the Society of London Theatre. The day of the audition arrived, and I hadn't felt nerves like it before. I looked around at the other actors in the room preparing. None of them looked like me. Surely I was at a disadvantage already. I had to prove more. I had to prove more than the rest of the people around me. I had to get the panel to see me as an actor performing and not just a girl with one arm. The easiest thing would have been to have turned around and left, but I couldn't do that. There was no way I was going to do that now. I needed to be brave and show them that as an actor with a disability, I could smash it. So I went on, and if I'm honest, the rest is a complete blur. The next 7 minutes were a haze, and I don't even know if I've got the words right, but I was happy with where I'd got. I represented my school, and that was a huge honour. A week later, the phone rang. It was the principal's PA, and I made my way to his office. Melissa, I want you to know that you and Grace both worked really hard, and they were really impressed with both of you. And we're happy to say that they've selected one of you as a winner. It was like some epic Sharon Osbourne moment at the X Factor judges' houses. I just needed dramatic music to go with it. Now, I was genuinely happy for Grace. She deserved it, she really did. She was an incredible actor, and she deserved every ounce of recognition. They've chosen you, Melissa. You've won the Olivier. I was speechless. Winning this was an unbelievable achievement in itself, but to be one of the first people with a visible physical disability was just incredible. A couple of weeks after graduating, I had my first audition. It was a 3-month theatre tour about the Olympics and the Paralympics. I got the part and I thought, wow, this is easy. Why do people moan? Actors, I've got no work. And then I finished the tour and real life hit. And I realised that actually it really wasn't that easy to be an actor. Auditions were scarce and hard to come by. My agent said that her eyes had really been opened to the way the industry works when it comes to a representation of disabled actors on screens and stages. She would put me up for parts and not tell them about my arm. Then they'd say they'd like to audition me. She would add that I had a disability, and just like that, the door would be closed. We've had another look, and actually Melissa looks a bit too young for the part. That'd change now, wouldn't it? Melissa's too old for the part, probably. As soon as my disability was mentioned, doors were closed. This was going to be a hard slog. Why had I even thought that this was the right industry for me? I knew I should have become an ice cream lady. Over the next couple of years, I was cast in BBC shows like Doctors, Casualty, Silk, The Interceptor, as well as brilliant shows in UK theatres. But what I thought was enough to start to make a change clearly wasn't. I'd go to auditions where directors would stare at my arm throughout the auditions, and producers saw me as an equality tick box and didn't have any intention of actually employing me. Actors without disabilities were being cast in TV shows, and films were portraying people with disabilities like it was a costume. Yet actual disabled actors were rarely seen for the parts. This had to change. As disabled people, we make up almost 20% of the population, but where is that represented? We can count on one hand, luckily, how many disabled actors with disabilities are regularly seen on our screens. And that's when the fire in my belly burnt stronger than it had before. I didn't know how much of a difference I could make, but I knew I wanted to do all I could to change the way that disability was represented in this industry. Now, this next little bit I found from a speech I did a few years ago, 6 years ago, and I copied and pasted it, and I was going to edit it. But actually, I'm really proud of what Melissa said 6 years ago and what I've done 6 years later, so I'm going to read it as it was. Over the next few years, I constantly got down to the final 2 auditions. Rejection phone calls weekly, working jobs I really didn't want to but needed to pay the bills. It became a running joke between me and my friends, Melissa, final 2 Johns. During the final 2 era, I started to get into fitness. It helped so much with the way that I viewed my body, and my confidence grew. I stopped hiding my arm and started loving the body that I was given. I won an award called the Highway to Well for progress that I'd made in accepting my own body, as well as shedding a positive light on disability in fitness. No, it wasn't acting work, but it felt amazing to win something so incredible. The prize was a trip to LA in 2016. I took my little brother with me, and we had the best time. On the penultimate night that we left to come home, we were staying in an Airbnb in Santa Monica. At 2:30 in the morning, my phone started ringing, and it was my agent. "Darling, "You've been offered a part in Coronation Street. Filming will start in June." I was so confused I hadn't even auditioned, but I'd regularly kept in contact with the casting director to let her know that I was up to. Had she really just kept me in mind this whole time? My agent followed up with an email that said, "Don't worry, darling, you're not dreaming." They wanted me. Melissa Final 2 Johns, the most well-known and longest-running soap. Being part of Coronation Street has been incredible. Filming on a set with actors that I'd grown up watching was surreal but amazing. I've received so many messages from people with children and grandchildren that were born just like me, saying how excited the young people were to see people like me on TV and how much confidence it had given them. So what happens now? I keep auditioning. I keep pushing to work on the shows that I want to work on. Maybe one day I'll even write my own show. I'll keep fighting for disability not to be seen as ugly or a dirty word, fighting for more equal representation for actors with disabilities, fighting for difference to be okay. Since writing that, I've been fortunate enough to work on some of the most wonderful British dramas, West End shows, and I've even written my own one-woman show, which toured the UK this year. I know that there are some people here that came to see it, and I'm so grateful for your support. That show is now being developed into its own TV show. I'm the co-founder of an organisation that champions disability in the arts and media, and in April this year, we won a BAFTA for our work in changing the industry. I lived the majority of my life thinking that I had to be the same as everyone else. But difference is what makes us stronger. Our individual experiences allow us to be brave, to make changes. Every one of us has something that makes us different to the person next to us, whether it's the way we're born, our background, our culture, things that have happened to us in our lives. They make us who we are. So to hell with being the same as everyone else. Find what makes you different. Magnify it, glorify it, make it the best thing you own. Use it to make the changes that you want to see in the world. And no matter how many blocks and barriers get in your way, keep pushing through them. Learn from them and always take great pride in never being the same as everyone else. Thank you.
Incredible. Melissa Johns.